What is good, everyone? Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name is Nick Engvall, and before we get into today's episode, I'm going to ask a small favor from all of you. We've uploaded over 350 episodes of the show, and we're slowly creeping up on 600,000 downloads. I honestly can't even wrap my head around it. That is insane. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of this journey with us. If you could take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, hit that follow button on Spotify, and give us a rating, it would be greatly appreciated. I'm looking forward to taking the show to new levels in the coming months with more guests from the community, talks with industry professionals, and deeper dives into the sneaker stories that shape this obsession we are all so passionate about. And your support is going to make that happen, so thank you in advance. One last thing before we get into this episode, do the right thing. Tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a compliment will take you, and we all know how good it feels to be on the receiving end of some appreciation.
Jordan trying to shake off Starks. Oh, what a move by Jordan! LeBron James with no regard for human life. 12 seconds. Bryant for the win.
Iverson against Gill, the crowd on its feet. Allen for the win.
Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Sneaker History Podcast. Of course, it's Mike here with another Coffee Time Kicks, and I got the man of the hour. If you hadn't seen the internet, then you need to stop living under a rock. My man Bimma is here. He's out here, causing stirs around sneakers, making people think real hard about things, which I love because he's telling truth around what these sneakers are coming out, all these collaborations. And if you need help with a collaboration, you need to get some insight, you call my man Bimma Williams here. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? I appreciate the introduction.
Yeah, man. No, of course, man. It's awesome. I love what you're doing, man. And it's like, and I said in the intro, the honesty around it. I love how no matter what brand you're working with, what brand you're talking about, you're being honest. You're not doing it for, hey, let me get this free pair. I'll say something nice about you. Kick me this check or this free pair. And that's something that's what's missing a lot right now.
Yeah, man. I love it. I think that's what the first thing for so many of us, right? We love this. We love sneakers. Yeah. We love collaborations. I personally love the marketing and the storytelling that goes into the aspects of those things. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, we've seen this year be kind of a soft year. Yeah. Just from a business standpoint, Nike just released their 2025 Q1, Q2 information. And, when things are trending down, it's likely because, we're not doing the things that we need to do in the marketplace. And some of that comes from the inability for honest voices to share like, hey, this is where we see cracks versus just like patting everyone on the back. And don't get me wrong, like I cheer. If you create something like that is a feat in itself. And I have the utmost respect. Yeah. And I empathize for that journey because it's so hard. And I think the and on that is, and we need to also be an accountable community.
100%. 100%, man. I agree with that. Is what's cool is that people have to realize that you've seen both sides of it. Now you're on the side of the, more of the consultative. That's probably the best way to put it. Mm-hmm. More of like the insight, being able to give you retrospect on these items. But you've also created, whether it be with Saucony, whether it be with Clark's, the struggle of creation. So it's not like someone like me. I've never created a shoe. Although I love the process, I never can say I put anything out for someone to actually judge. And I think it's awesome that you were able to, like you say, empathize with it. Like, I've done it. I see how hard it can be. I've had my successes. And I'm sure just like anybody else who creates, you always can, you're your hardest critic where you're like, I wish I would have done this differently.
Oh, 1000%.
Exactly.
Right? Like you have to, I was like, if you're going to be honest with other people, you have to be honest with yourself. And I think it was so funny. I announced that I was going to be advising Skull Candy on Collab, specifically with artists and creatives. And someone said, so does this mean we get to critique you? I said, by all means, be as honest as you would like to be. And that's, typically why I've curated my community the way I have is because I'm open to what I give, right? Yeah. And so but I definitely judge my own projects hard. Like when I did projects when I was at Nike and Adidas and Saucony, I still scrutinize a lot of those projects. And I think anyone that wants to improve, you do the same thing, right? You critique you reevaluate your past work, you take a look at the marketplace, and you kind of find what you have to say in that marketplace.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, with that, I mean, when did you decide that, all right, I've done the creation, I've worked with brands. When did you decide to take that turn from strictly, I don't want to say strictly sneakers, because I'm sure you did other things as well, but taking that turn from, okay, I'm working for Yeezy, I'm working for Adidas, and trying to say, you know what, I want to do it my way. And I mean, I feel like a lot of people now are like, they find the strength within themselves to say, you know what, I have the talent to go out and branch out and do this the way I want without having the I guess the corporate construct around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was that turning point for you there?
Man, so the interesting thing about my career is that I kind of went from small brand to bigger brand to biggest brand in regards to sneaker and sportswear.
Yeah.
And when you're young in your career and you're doing that, you don't know what you don't know about the other brands. And one of the things that typically happens in the industry is most professionals will start at a bigger brand and will likely stay at that bigger brand. Yeah. Right. You have these multi-year careers, and then occasionally people will go around. Rarely do people start at a significantly smaller brand, because Saucony at the time that I had joined Saucony was a $300 million brand compared to Adidas and Nike, which Adidas was a 10 billion at the time, and Nike was, going for this goal of 50 billion. Yeah. So it's just completely different businesses, and the size of the organizations are different. And so what had happened was early on in my career at Saucony, I was young and I was coming in at like 26. I was it was small business. I was able to interact and touch a lot of different departments. I was coming in to do social media, but I got to spend a lot of time with product and design, which is a bit uncommon in the organizations, because there's just a natural tension between those two organizations. But by the time I was 29, I was running a $50 million business for Saucony. I was running our lifestyle division globally, right?
That's insane. Oh my God, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm a kid. I'm still like learning the business. And here I am responsible for 50 million. I got direct report, I got a team, and I have, folks that are laddering into me in all these departments. And so when I went to Adidas, like I lost all of that, honestly. I took a demotion. I went to work in just the product marketing sense, where I wasn't a person controlling the budget. I wasn't controlling the marketing or the operations or the partnership strategy or the inline strategy. Like just one lane, you had to be here. I had to be here. And then while it was great because I was working on Yeezy, there still was a lot to be desired as far as like, when you get used to, like, I always say, because like that kind of felt like being an entrepreneur. And what I tell people is like, when you get used to being an entrepreneur, and if you really like it, you're not really going to be employable again, because the only way that you will enjoy it is if you have that end-to-end control. And that's what most entrepreneurs are. We're kind of control freaks. And you got to work through, you can't bring that in every aspect of your life. But by the time I got to Nike, in 2019, October 2019, and having gone through my Adidas experience on Yeezy, the allure of being a professional and having to deal with the politics and versus my skill set at that point was like, I truly felt like my skill set was in a place where I should have been leading a team and wanting more control over where these projects were going. Versus just reporting in to someone else. And so honestly, I was bored.
You know what? And I think that's a lot of times what happens. People have, like you said, you started off with such this big task at such a young portion of your career. You kind of, like you say, demoted yourself a bit. Yeah. And you're like, man, I can do more, right? You're kind of looking around like, I'm twiddling my thumbs. I can do more.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be challenged. And the only thing that would have made sense in hindsight was if I went into roles that would allow me to maintain or to continue the skills that I had already built versus like going to smaller roles because I wanted to be at a bigger company. Yeah. And so there's a trade-off. Like I did learn things, but I also was missing the opportunity to build upon my leadership and my vision, and also being able to spread that offense across a team. And so, yeah, quite honestly, by the time I got to Swoosh, I was bored and I needed to challenge myself. Yeah. And so that's when I started my own podcast. And I really wanted to, for me, it was about like, can I actually create my own idea or business, whatever we want to call it? And can I turn that into revenue? Where could I do this full time and like, and be able to like challenge myself outside of like working in these organizations? Like,
definitely.
Maybe I can.
Yeah. No, that's awesome though, because again, you take a chance on yourself. Everything you learn from each of those brands is like, okay, it's a culmination of experience that lets you go into this place with, I mean, when you start things like this, the podcast, anything in this creative realm, you don't necessarily have to back it. It's not like, all right, well, this multi-million-dollar backing me, I got to go do this. It is purely like, hey, I got to take this and like, I got to take control of it and be able to really move the ship when needed, because everything changes so much in this space. It's insane. And you've been able to successfully do that and still successfully do it, again, making strides. But also, I'm sure, like everyone else, when you deal with this, you hit bumps in the road. Is there anything that you've like, hit, you're like, crap, can I still do this?
Yeah, I mean, you got to think, like I posted last year, and I don't know, because I gained, like, if you look December to December, last December, I crossed 30,000 followers. And this December, I crossed 176,000. So there's a lot of new people in here that aren't aware of my other 4 years as an independent content creator. I call myself a Collab marketing educator, but there was, for those 4 years is when I was building my first IP, which was Claim a Story, short for Claim a Seat at the Table. And we interviewed different Black and brown professionals about their career and how they got there, all to the purpose of inspiring the next generation so that they can maybe see how they can work in this industry. And then from there, we built that into like this experiential company where we did a road trip in a minivan, turned it into a podcast, and we did pop-up events, and we did collabs, on t-shirts and stuff like that. And so like, I love that. And that was mostly supported by brand partnerships. And so at the top of 2023, we learned that DEI was about to unravel. When we had got our IP, it got bucketed into DEI. It didn't get bucketed into sneakers or streetwear. It got bucketed into DEI. Yeah. And so those budgets disappeared. And so I had went from building a multi-million-dollar business into watching this business go to zero and couldn't figure out how to pivot it because the brand identity, which is one of my strengths, is like my brand identity was so strong against this cause that I couldn't shake it. And I ended up having to lay off 6 people that worked with me, ended up losing 7 figures in business that year, last year. And so effectively going into, and this is all happening while my Saucony launch is happening.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, it's happening in the background.
I didn't know it was all like simultaneously.
If you do like the 30 for 30 OJ Simpson doc, and they give you like what's happening in OJ's life and what's happening in society with Rodney King, like that was my Saucony launch. Like it was literally like, hey, Saucony launch is happening. Black Footwear Forum, James Whitner awards me Entrepreneur of the Year. Same time, I'm informing my team that we're going to furlough and then we're going to lay off because of the scenario in the marketplace. And I remember when I got the call for the Entrepreneur of the Year for Black Footwear Forum, and I was like, I don't really feel this way. And they're like, it's not, you're going to have years where you're up, you're going to have years where you're down, but we look at you holistically.
Mm-hmm.
And, they said, that's why we wanted to award you this. But like, I credit a lot to the work that I've done on mindset, for how I've been able to navigate these last 12 months. These effectively have been rebuilding.
Okay.
And there was a significant pivot that I made, going into 2024. And I've just been consistent about exploiting that pivot over the last 12 months.
Hey man, you take the opportunity. You see sunlight, you go. Like that's amazing. Like I had no idea that it was like you're getting this launch, you're getting this award, and at the same time the carpet's kind of being pulled from underneath you.
Yeah, it was hard. I'm not even gonna lie to you, man. Like that was it's one of those times as an independent where you're questioning yourself about like, oh man, am I really in this? And like, how am I going to find a way through this? And that is the difference between working at a major organization where if you miss, you got some padding, whereas you're a small business and you don't move quick enough. Like those results are felt immediately. And that's why when COVID happened, so many of our beloved businesses didn't make it because, we're already tight, already being squeezed.
Yeah. Now, when you say that, you brought something up, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know it was a big play at one point because, the voices were being raised, right? Like, hey, we want fair treatment, which still, I think to this day, everyone feels the same way. Yeah. Do you think that, I'm trying to see if I phrase this the right way. Now, since a lot, like I said, those buckets they're like, okay, it's like a kind of like a diminishing return for them. Like, all right, we did this, we moved on. Now we can kind of go back to the way we want things to be, I quote unquote that, right? Do you think it's harder that as people of Black and brown descent are looking to be more in a creative space, like ourselves included, the brand deals, the overall bucket for dollars, in my mind, I haven't had a brand deal yet. It's something, of course, I aspire to have. But at the same time, speaking with other people in the same field, people who've been here longer than me, I feel like it's almost now become a struggle. It's like I equated it to, I was speaking with Mr. Miller, if you're familiar with him on Instagram. I equated it to the movie The Dark Knight, where Joker comes in, he's like, kills Michael Jai White's character, takes his henchman, breaks his stick and said, whoever survives this comes in. I kind of feel like that's happening in the Black and brown space because we're becoming amazing at this content creator gig, right? I think it's everyone's putting out some great stuff, no matter who it is, whether it be yourself, Bimma, whether it be other podcasts out there, people like different stores out there, you name it, Nina Chanel, things like that. I'm just trying to think of a bunch of people off the top of my head, but I feel like the bucket for us has become a little smaller and we're all trying to fight for the same spot, which in turn almost pit you against each other in a way which I don't like. I think we should all be able to commingle while still being competitive and still be respecting each other. I feel like it's just hard. And from your experience seeing that in real time, what do you think about that? Like, what do you see from your perspective from the other end who've been in the brand deals, who recovered from the fall, basically?
Yeah, no, I think it is. It's definitely harder. That's been consistent around every creative that I've spoken to and come across. Like what the deals compared to what they were receiving over the last 2 years compared to this past year is definitely down tremendously. And the other thing that makes that challenging is, and some folks don't want to hear this, but when you're dealing with these algorithms on these different social media platforms, there is certain types of content that does get elevated higher than other types of content. And then there's just biases that people don't want to accept or acknowledge that do play a part into who's getting more follows versus other follows. And at the end of the day, when it comes to a lot of marketing teams on the inside of these brands, and this is where my honesty gets me in trouble. A lot of folks aren't as tapped in. I'm just being honest. Like they aren't very tapped into why certain content can be influential and why it's good versus why vanity metrics are cool and interesting, but they might not translate back into meaningful things when it comes to certain communities. And so you see investment in numbers, and it's the type where you always end up like, wait, why did they get that deal? And it likely has to do with someone who's looking the outside in, not truly connected to that community, doesn't truly understand where the influence comes from. And so they invest like an outsider. And so it makes it a lot harder. With that said, we are seeing folks still get opportunities and deals, but it's not nearly what it was. And for me, I'll be honest, like it allowed me to see a different way to do business, which is not reliant on brand partnerships, which is what I think is healthier for all of us if we can make this switch, which is what I'm the biggest advocate for, is what Kai Cenat is doing. Not necessarily with streaming, but having a premium content proposition. And again, premium is all about what your audience sees it as. We're all going to think it different because I know people have their thoughts about streaming, but to be able to get paid for the main thing you do versus having a outsider like a brand who, again, which I believe is not, they don't know your audience like you know your audience, right? And so why not have your audience pay for what they feel is valuable for you? To me, it keeps you honest, right? Because if folks aren't paying, then it means they don't see the value, right? If they're paying, that means they see the value. So you want to continue to prove. It's an incentive for both parties. It's the most honest incentive. And so that's what I see the future as. And I encourage folks, like, if a brand deal comes around, right, that's great, but don't let your business be reliant on a brand deal. Figure out how to structure it so that the audience that you speak to every day is your customer.
No, that's, you know what? It's when no one ever says that. Everyone's like, when you start the content creator thing, it's like, no one wants to give you the back end, the perspective. They're always like, all they want to show is the, hey, look, I got 1 million followers. I just got this brand deal from XYZ company. And that's, I mean, all you see is all, I mean, I speak from experience. I've been doing the podcast, I think, for almost 6 years, been doing the YouTube for 5. And I haven't had the conversation because no one, it's almost like they want to hide the secret sauce. They're like, hey, you know, and it sucks. I hate that. And that was probably the first real thing I've heard about that. Like, unintentionally, I wouldn't come in here like, oh, let me get advice. And it just unintentionally happened. And it's like, that was really kind of a epiphany for me because, you know what? I think you're 100% right. And that's one of the things, like, shifting that thought of, hey, I need a brand deal. Because my whole thing is this, like, what we do at Sneaker History is not a hype machine. It is meant to educate, promote a community. And it's not just like, oh, sneakers. Like, hey, we can introduce each other to sneakers, but then me and the guys, anybody else, we talk about completely different things after that. It's just a way to get into the door to people.
Right.
And the honesty, like, we will be honest no matter which brand we love, which brand we like, unfiltered honesty, but in a sense of respectful honesty, like, hey, because we do love these things so much, which I think you're the same way, I expect the best if I love it, and I'm giving you $200+ at this point. So I think what you said, if anyone listening, I'm speaking to the audience, you guys now, especially if you're looking to create, I think really listen to what Bimma just said, because that is something people don't tell you. They always have you chasing this bag from someone else. And I think the reason people become entrepreneurs is that I'm tired of my work paying for someone else's Rolls Royce. And I always use that car as just an example because essentially that's what it is.
It's just what it is. Like, if you, and everybody has a different preference, but like ultimately for me, I want to be in control of the information that I share with my community. And I know the value of that information, and I know what it can do for someone's life and career, right? And so when you know that, you have to be conscious about what things you decide to do and making sure those things don't devalue what you decide to do. And there's countless examples of that, but I'm from the South. So the example, of course, I'm going to give you is No Limit Records and Master P, right? And so Master P, he was approached by a record label in the 90s and they offered him $1 million deal. And when you're from the hood, right, $1 million in the 90s is a lot of money. And like everyone's telling you to take that money, take that money, take that money. And the moment he takes that money, right, he no longer has 100% control of his destiny. Yeah. He is now effectively an employee of that label. And he has all this money that he has to pay them back. And instead he said, nah, well, if he's going to offer me that, like there must be true value because no one would then give you $1 million if they didn't think they could make 10X on that million. Yep. And so he went and figured out how to structure his own distribution. And he ended up, you know, in the 90s becoming a $400 million man. Yeah. Now, when I think about us, like a lot of times we need to do a better job of understanding how to structure content as the content that you give away for free. And I always say free is subjective because like I'm not really giving anything away for free. My 60 seconds, like I'm putting those out there to acquire audience. Right? Like, and I'm giving you enough, but I'm not giving you nearly what I would give you if I was charging you. You get what I'm saying? Exactly. And so, you know, you have to think about that, but then you have to think, okay, if I give you a little bit more. So if you look at what I did for Collab of the Year, like, don't get me wrong. I'm both parts. I'm both parts entrepreneur. And on the other side, I'm creator first. And so I'm always going to try to deliver the best that I can when it comes to the content. Yeah. And then I'm also going to try to do the best I can as an entrepreneur. And so while like I was super excited about the video content that I put out and how people responded to like the Kendrick or the Ant Edwards or the Tyler stuff, right? What I was most on the business side interested in is emails. Yep. That was smart, by the way. It's why I unlisted the video was because I was like, this one is not a vanity views for me. If 100,000 people watch this video and I have no way of getting in touch with those people, that's great, but that's really hard for me as an independent business owner. Like my livelihood depends on my ability to get in touch with the audience that has shared that they're really excited about what I have to offer. Yeah. And so we just have to have more of these conversations about how do we do that? And then how do we then, and what do we then monetize that's going to be of value to our audience? Yeah. And when I saw you do that, I was like, at first, I thought you were doing like a live stream or something with that. I was like, what is he doing? And then and I saw, I was like, oh, you smart son of a gun. Like, that makes so much sense. Like, because I went to school for business. So like, although like my mind still is like, I get what was it? I'm left hand on right brain. So I literally is like, or left, whatever, I'm more the creative side of things, but the business piece still sits there. And I saw that, I was like, that is so smart because if anything, you've gained the audience who maybe they're not on YouTube all the time. Maybe they're not on Instagram all the time. But if you want to do something that you want to do on a large scale, now the email's connected where you can go, boop, I'm doing this. And they're going to automatically remember, oh yeah, I remember Bimma sent me this, thing for his collab of the year. He did a great video last time. Let me jump into this one. So that building an audience, which people, I feel like is an art, not a science, because people are fickle. People will be with you 1 minute, then jettison to something else in the next minute. That is an amazing way you've done that in a non-evasive way because it was an election to put your email there. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to just spam you. It was, we're counting down to something, which anticipation built, and then you paid it back with not only the video, but the giveaway. So you did all the things that people want to do, and then now they're probably all in for all intent and purposes is like, I'm hooked now. I'm waiting for the next thing. What's the next thing he's going to do? Because people are already talking. If you hadn't heard, which I'm sure you have, is he going to do it again next year? Yeah. The question. And so that to me is like, you as the creator have to be, you got to really know your audience. Like, your audience, like over the 6 years you've been doing this, you know your audience. I'm trying what I mean? and so with this, for me, is like, I know my audience, right? And so if I've grown 176,000 over this last year, and a percentage of those are now folks in email, what I now know is I know the people that actually want from me versus want to be entertained by me.
Exactly.
There's a difference, right? That the folks that are in the email are more likely to want to support me from a financial standpoint because they value it enough where they put their email there. You know, I mean, because like there's an emotional connection to put your email on something because you know you're gonna like it's your inbox.
It's like,
you know,
I want to give that out. I don't know. But
yeah. And so I'm gonna treat that community of people with priority, right?
Yeah.
So anything that I do, if I do an event, if I get like an exclusive interview, I'm not gonna market it on Instagram ever.
Yeah.
Like ever. It's gonna go straight to that list and that's it.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? So the way I've heard it broken down before is YouTube's where you make the money. TikTok, I mean, that's up in the air. We'll figure out what's going on with that down the line, which I'm not a big fan. I'll post there for exposure, but YouTube, they say, is where you get the kind of the nod from people throwing out the money, right? They're like, oh, you can do 100,000 subscribers or followers, whatever they call them there. But that's where it comes into, like you said, that vanity investment from the company, because I've seen people with hundreds of thousands of followers can't connect with their audience because they got hot based on a trend, which all this is trend based a lot of times, but you have to find your niche and say, hey, and everyone like what you do in collaborations. I was sitting there the other day, I was like, how in the world did Bimma decide collaborations was like, you got your Jordan guys, you got your Nike guys. People said, nah, just collaborations. I was like, I hadn't thought of that. No one just does that. You were literally in the lane by yourself. I'm like, how in the world did you just spontaneously, oh, that's the way I want to go.
It was by accident, I'll be honest. So as a part of the pivot, I was reflecting on my career and where I've been. And I also mentor freelance creatives to help them figure out how to monetize their skill set. And I learned this through, I took a course about creating a course from this lady named Danielle Leslie, who's just incredibly successful. She's a Black woman, and she turned it into like this $20+ million business. And so what I learned through that process was I needed to spot, first you need to figure out the opportunity has to come from where your experience has been. And my experience first has always been through collab marketing. Like if you go through every chapter, Nike, I worked collab marketing. I was looking after, Travis Scott. I was looking after Acronym. I was looking after Yoon Ambrose, some of these different projects. Oh, cool. And then before that, I was at the ultimate collab, which is Yeezy and Adidas. And before that, at Saucony, I was managing collabs. And so I was like, And then I was like, well, what am I passionate about when it comes to this space? And I was like, I'm passionate about collabs. Okay. And so I had to start figuring out, okay, well, how can I find my way into this? And I was playing around with some talking head video. It wasn't my favorite thing at the time. It's since become something that I enjoy, but like my videos in early January, I wasn't really enjoying doing talking head videos. But I'd had kind of this consultation call with my friend Jordan Rogers. He does sports marketing. And then I had a chat with Kevin Concepts, who Kevin has this intersection of furniture and sneakers and home decor that he does really well. And I was like, hey, y'all, I need some feedback because I don't feel like I'm reaching the audience that I could reach. And like, y'all are doing a really good job of that. What am I missing? And so Jordan gives me kind of this framework for how he thinks about it. And then Kevin tells me, you got to show and tell. He said, you do a lot of telling, but you ain't showing us at the same time. I said, bet. And then it was a video where I tried this on Pharrell Louis Vuitton Timberland in February. And it just went, it was like 250,000 views. I never had that situation happen to me. And it came with like 5,000 new followers. Oh, and dang. I was like, what happened? And so like, I didn't immediately notice it, but then like, another week went by and I think there was a Tyler story. Okay. And I did it and I was like, what the hell? And so then I was like, wait a minute. Because I had put this into the universe, right? Whatever you believe in, like you gotta watch for the signs, right? Yep. And I started to see the signs and I was like looking closer into the sneaker space and I was like, wait a minute. Did I just find a niche? I said I did find the niche.
Just stumbled in there like, oh, here we go.
And so that's what, a lot of people think like you intentionally find stuff. A lot of times you find stuff through happenstance.
Yeah.
Intentionally doing the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
I told, my wife this the other week, and it was like, faith without works is dead, right? And so if you have faith, right, the faith is the planning. The faith is the faith is that you will get there, right? The works is the planning and active pursuit. And that what's going to happen between those two worlds is you're going to smack into the thing. Mm-hmm. And so I smacked into the fact that no one else was talking about collab marketing. And then I realized, oh, wait, there's only a few of us that could do this anyway. Yep. My peers still work in the space. And then the thing that I figured out by June. So if you just were bored and you want to review if you want to review the trajectory of how I started to adjust things, the thing I figured out by June was, either y'all are afraid to be honest, or your pay structure is restricting you from being honest. Because if you are honest and you hurt some feelings, either your funding to your show on a media platform is going to get pulled, or your brand sponsorship is going to get pulled, because that they're paying you because they want to sell sneakers. They're not paying you to educate. And I'm here to educate / entertain.
Yeah, man.
And so I figured that out by June, and I started to realize no one has my background, and currently no one feels secure enough to speak this honestly.
Yep.
And then the third piece was you could see this by September, was I have a love for comedy. And so you start to see me start to work in that love for comedy and culture.
A little spicy language in there sometimes.
Yeah.
Look at him, look at him.
And I think sometimes if people don't have that appreciation, or if you didn't grow up in a Southern household where it was always loud and you always got insulted playing spades, it just doesn't make sense to you. And you're like, oh, he's being harsh. And I'm like, this is just trash talk to me at a cards table or playing pickup basketball. It's not personal. It's just funny. But
it's just talking to your peers. It's like if you're talking to one of your boys, I talk to my friends, we'll talk, then we're going to insult each other some kind of way.
Always. I'm always going to give you shit about something.
That's not, I don't just... And it's you get a familiarity with people. It's if I just talk to you in this way of, I'm talking corporate talk all the time. It's you're not going to listen to that person speak all day. It's I got that at work. I don't want that. I want a family affair where I can talk to, one of my cousins, one of my siblings, anybody. That's what you're right. When you hear that, it's I just laugh. I think they're hilarious because
I see it as talking to, at this point in my career, I don't want to do sneaker collabs myself. I did it. I thought that was great. It was a wonderful experience. But what I'm mostly passionate about is what I'm currently doing, which is educating. Yeah. But I want to, I see myself as the mischievous professor. And if I worked at a university, right, you're essentially getting my curriculum in different facets. But what I observe in university is that no professor speaks the way that I speak. And the way that I speak is how me and my friends would communicate when we used to hang out at sneaker shops, which is where I discovered my career path. And so I said, well, if I'm going to meet that kid and if I'm going to resonate with that person, I got to speak to them the way that I speak. And that's not always accepted in these constructs, in these organizations, right? In these institutions. And so we're in the free marketplace. You can choose to be educated and inform and consume from whoever you want. And so I said, well, let them decide that.
Yeah. And that's in the age of, I like to call it YouTube University.
Yes, sir.
You found a perfect niche because you're able to come in, or someone's going to kill me on that. Niche. I'm sorry if I didn't say it right.
Niche.
Dude, I had someone correct me on that one day. I'm is that the best you got? I mean, if that's the worst I'm doing, I'm okay. Thank you for pointing out the worst thing I've done today. But it's awesome because YouTube, in, again, most cases free. If you ever decide to do the premium route, say, hey, here's some premium content for you, you're going to have that following to say, you know what? I want to pay $10 a month to Bimma, whatever that membership may be. And that's the great way to look at it. It's like, I don't have to go sit in the classroom. I can talk to them the way I want to talk to them. I can do my own thing. And honestly, I think that's what people are looking for. It was funny. I went to my son's career day last month. And I mean, I work in HR. I don't talk about HR. That would bore the kids to sleep. But I talk to them about sneaker history and talk about what we do there. The kids love it. And always laughing. My wife, I'm like, I don't talk to kids like kids. I talk to them like I would talk to anyone else. But it's weird because she's like, well, kids gravitate towards you, I think, because of that. Because you talk to them in the form, like, they feel like this respect. And like, maybe that's what it is. But just like you said, talking to people where they're at and not trying to like, I'm greater than that because I have this channel. I got this. They sent me these shoes for free. I can talk down. And I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've heard. And I feel like people do that. And that, and again, audience is fickle. If you start doing it too much, like I always tell people like the videos of like, I spent 20 grand a day at a sneaker shop. I can't do that. I can't relate.
I can't relate.
No, my segment is I'm cheap. I'm a dad. I gotta buy sneakers for 4 kids and a wife. Like, where can I get the 2 for $89 we used to get back at Champs? Like, that's my life.
and that's most people. And I think that's what gets lost in this era when it comes to content and it comes to even how these sneakers are produced and priced, and then how collabs are approached. I was like, you got to remember, like, have you looked at the economy this year? Like, people are not up. Like, people are struggling. Inflation's up. People trying to figure out how they can buy groceries and like, you know, do all these things. And so, yes, people are still spending money. A lot of times spending money they don't have. Yep. And I think, you know, there's 2 points you made. Like, at one point, like, we have to be aware of that and we have to be conscious of how we can still speak to the community. And then on the other side of it, you know, when I share my resume, it's not to share my resume in a way to say that I'm better than anyone. What I'm essentially doing is just saying, this is the perspective that I come from, and this is why my perspective is different. And a lot of times when I'm in conversations, whether it's in my comments or DMs, I always tell people, I'm like, hey, your opinion, at least from me, is going to be respected, because I don't care if you have the same experience or me, or if you came off the street. You're another human. You know what I mean? And so, like, just because we have a different background than each other doesn't mean I should treat you differently than I would treat myself or my neighbor. Yeah,
definitely. And again, people, it's all about respect. It doesn't matter how many plaques you get, or if you don't have that sense of there's still humanity behind what you do, you won't have it long. I mean, nobody wants to be this cutthroat business person, but it's like, that's not how you stay in business. I mean, I always look at the Arizona tea guy. He's like, well,
oh my goodness.
Right? It's like the best example is like, I'm not trying to raise my plate. They've been buying this at $1 their whole life. Like, why am I going to change that just to make 10 cents more? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I was like, who? I was like, what business leader thinks like that?
I wish a lot more, because look, we talk about groceries. I'm like, I'm trying to get a brand deal with HEB down here in Texas. Like, come on, let me get them free groceries. I'll review grocery all day long. It's tough down here. Like, we'll go to a grocery store, and my wife's like, I just spent $100. Like, what'd you get? She pulled out like 3 bags. I'm like, wait,
what is this? Where the rest of it
at? What'd you leave there?
Straight up.
It's crazy. And it's like, in the grand scheme of things, people have to realize the leather, rubber, mesh is not the important piece of the sneakers. It's the community behind it. That's still like, we're finding something. It's a hobby. Like, let's be honest.
It's a hobby,
man. It's fun. It's a way to break away from the day-to-day monotony that we get. And when people just take into this, like, I don't know, toxic route. I mean, like, when you're getting Twitter beefs, you're getting real beefs. I'm like, bro, this is like, this, calm down. And honestly, and it's probably something that's been beat like a dead horse when it comes to you. I just want to tell you, we don't have to get into it, but I 100% respect the way you handled the whole Yachty thing. Like, it was one of those things, like, a lesser person, I'm talking about myself, I would have lost my mind. And it was like, they might have to call security on me. Like, we gotta get. But the fact that you took it and you embraced it, you never took a step back because it was something backed by the big brand. to like, oh, I'm retracting my statement. I'm sorry about that. Like, I really respect how you handled that. And it's like, hey, this is a really testimony to who you are, as I'm going to stay true to whatever it is. I'm not telling you suck. I'm just giving you a valid opinion about how I feel about something. So, I mean, again, it's not something to dig into. I just wanted to say, hey, man, I just respect how you handle that and like not playing a character, but being like true to your actual character, you know?
No, yeah, I appreciate that, man, and I thought it was an important point in my career, and obviously, I'm aware that when I put out anything, anyone has the ability to respond, and they deserve to respond. Yeah. In the court of debate and opinion and commentary, like it should take place. And I don't have a problem with Yachty speaking his piece. Like it's his sneaker. He should, say his piece. I think the problem lies with how he chose to go about that. And a lot of people have asked me about the scenario because they've seen the tape, and they said throughout it, they are looking at me and they're like, you seem unbothered. And I said, the first time he said it was funny. I said, throughout it, it got bad. But I said, I never took it personally because it wasn't true. Yeah. Right. Like, and I know myself, right? I'm secure in myself. Like I'm old. I'm 38. I'm not, this young cat that's still new. And of course, we're always going to have to figure things out. But when it comes to me as the person, I know who I am. I love my life. I love my community and my friends. And I love that I get to contribute back to this space. And, the biggest two problems that I had, honestly, throughout the thing was that I hated that it was I hate that it was elevated in a beef between two Black men. Yeah. Exactly. I hated that. I hated the way it looked. I hated the optics, and I hated that we were being shopped around for engagement. I hated it. And so I immediately, after I put my response out, I knew that I wasn't going to tear him down in my response. I was going to continue to build him up, because my first thing wasn't tearing him down anyway. I was trying to give him critical information so that he could pivot, evolve his Nike deal, continue to thrive, get better. And I knew the marketplace, and I knew what people had already been saying about white on white Air Force Ones and just Air Force Ones in general. There's a fatigue. So, I put this out there for that reason. He and I chatted. I'll keep that confidential. Oh, for sure. We go to do the apology. And what I will say is that, or to do the live, was that I encouraged that because I was like, hey, like, one, I don't want this to keep going. Two, you and I have privately squashed this. The people need to know we squashed this. And I think it'll just be good for everyone. And, the thing that I've gotten some critique about was about later during the promotion of Collab of the Year, I addressed complex. And I've gotten critique about that because I don't think people truly understand why I did that and why I felt the need that I had to. Yeah. If you look at things, I addressed Yachty. I never got around to addressing complex yet. Yeah. And so what you have to understand is that I'm at ComplexCon. We're surrounded by, thousands of young fans. And in that, I'm not traveling with security or big entourage, big posse, right? It's me. And so if Yachty said what he said on stage and he wanted to threaten me, and you release this video and there's a bunch of Yachty fans at this venue, you can't control who then wants to step to me about something. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so it could have went sideways on me. And the other thing that I didn't like was the fact that again, it was promoting, it's like a fight promotion. They were like the way they tried to promote their sneaker of the year. Yeah. And I mean, for lack of better terms, I'm not working at Complex. Don't ever plan to, but it was boring. Like they needed something to, I hate to say it, spice it up. And I was very surprised that when I watched the whole video, like the beginning and end of the whole sit down, I was very surprised they left it in there. Okay, so hold on. So this was the third thing that I was pissed about. I said, so if we're going to go through this, you're going to see the comments of everyone saying, while it was happening in real time, that this was unacceptable. We shouldn't be a part of community. And then you keep it in the edit. And then what did you see in the edit? You saw that they had a camera on me. I didn't sign any. I got a pass to go to Complex Con this year. So I didn't buy any tickets. And the pass came from somebody that was leaving. And they were like, hey, don't go through the line or anything. Take my pass. So I never signed a release form or any of these things.
Yeah.
And so you're literally using me for engagement and to make money. And like, if you don't know me by now, like, I'm going to speak because I have to assert and champion myself. No one else. And that's for any creator. Independently, nobody's going to do that for you. And so for the folks that didn't understand that, I think if anything, having this context, people should commend me for not going harder.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I was like, man, it's like, and again, it's just one of those things that speaks to someone who's been around in the industry for a while. Because I'm like you, I'm not young by any means. I mean, look young, I'm 35, so I'm not out here trying to go toe to toe with people about some nonsense. I'm like, bro, it's shoes. Like we ain't having no conversation like this about shoes. But that's why when I made that video, just like addressing it from like my side, like why in the world would you do this? That's why I reached out to you first. I'm like, I'm not gonna just like use this man's situation. It's like if he feels like he didn't want to talk about it, I won't post this video. Yeah, and it's like I think that the fact that Complex didn't even have the decency to do that and they're gonna monetize off of that is kind of wild. But hey, you know what? I feel like you have definitely come out on the other side of that better than any of that nonsense. So keep on moving, man. Let's just like it's just like I know it ain't bothering you. It's one of the things like I know that when you go places, it's like I'm sure it gets brought up. Just maybe a random fan, you're like, oh yeah, God, do I have to hear this again? That's what I said. I don't want to dig into it, dude, because you might hurt it too much.
It's a part of it now. You know, I always say the thing that what's his name? Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty has this. He had this segment of his podcast, or it was an interview that he did. And I think they asked him about like, do you ever get tired of people coming up to you and like recognizing you or asking you for things or whatever the case may be? And his response was, he was like, we have built a relationship online, whether I realize it or not. And so to them, we have a relationship. And so the perspective is we have a genuine relationship. And so, you know, I have this mentality of, we have a relationship. And I'm a human, and so I owe them a human response. Mm-hmm. And then also, it'd be worse if they said nothing. If they didn't even care about if they didn't care about what I was doing, that would be worse, right? Yeah, for
definitely.
me. And so I'm like, if you want to talk about that, cool, I'll entertain you until we got something else to talk about.
Ain't that the truth? Well, dang, man, that's awesome. And something I wanted to do in the beginning, but I just started talking to you and I lost train of thought. So I think it might be the perfect way to circle back, go full circle in the interview, especially with you, because I know your love for sneakers, a love for collab. So if you guys have ever watched Sneaker History, do this in the beginning, not the end, but that's my fault. I got too excited to interview Bimma, so I jumped the gun. We do rocking and copping. And Bimma, I wanted, what you rocking lately or today?
Today, I got something that's a bit controversial.
Oh, what you got? I hope you pulled the Air Force One. I would have laughed. If you pulled up the Air Force One, I would have died laughing.
You just died laughing. Somebody had some ridiculous ideas for what I should have done for the promotion this year, and I was like, I told y'all that's not what time I'm on. But these are going to be a topic of discussion next year. And so we'll see how we approach this topic of discussion. But these are the Alma Year. Converse 10-year anniversary, Nike, swoosh collab. Obviously, the conversations have been around how Market had a unofficial version of these, and so but these are the latest that I got. I'm transparent; these showed up at the door. But this is currently a very interesting story that I'll get into in January because I am off the clock until January.
Hey man, I'm right there with you. I got what was today? The 20th? I got until the 22nd. If I ain't got it done by then, it's not happening until January 1st. So I'm right there with you, man. But also, congratulations on being in that short film too. I didn't say at the beginning. Congrats.
Yeah, that was a crazy experience. It's a delicate dance. Like I'm just transparent, but what's most important to me is that the community knows that they can count on me to be honest and direct. And so, it's probably like my last of those types of opportunities. And I won't call out one of my friends that's also a collaborator, but it was him that enlightened me to the fact. He was like, yo, if you want to truly be Switzerland, he was like, there's things that you can't do that other creators can do. And he's like, posting sneakers that come in the mail or getting seated, you probably can't do. Or like participating in brand campaigns, you probably can't do. And I was like, you are right. Like, I can't do those things anymore. And so this is like my last hurrah.
That's all right, man. You take it and you do great things with it. So I ain't mad at you.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, the I'm a Meilleur thing was crazy. Like James's vision and creating a short film and working with the Turner brothers. Like those two brothers are like in their early 20s. And I'm like, they're definitely going to do a motion picture. They're definitely
That's awesome. Okay. I gotta check it out. I haven't checked it out yet. You know what? I think they had a showing in Houston. Yeah. But to be fair, I probably will never get an invitation from James Whitner. Captain's super critical of things he does. So I mean, I do it in fairness though. It's like if I'm gonna be critical of this person, I'm gonna be critical of that person. So
right.
And it's not to say he doesn't do good work. I mean, people love his shoes. May not be my favorite, but I guess what? I respect the fact he came out with this whole collection for his 10-year anniversary and I mean, that was the first time we've seen that kind of collection since the 10. So I will always give respect where respect's due. I'm just like you get to a point of my truth may get me in trouble sometimes.
You have but I commend you for that, right? Because we shouldn't be in a society where, you should be put in out of bounds or whatever for those things, right? Yeah. Like we all entitled to that. And I think we're a healthier community when we can appreciate the commentary, whether the commentary is overwhelmingly positive or the commentary is constructive, because we have to start evolving our words behind hate and negative.
Yeah, it's never the hate. That's what I'm saying. I don't hate anybody. Like, it would take a lot for me to hate you. And again, I have these things because I expect greatness from when I put my money at. So
no, I feel you.
And I think that's what it is. And yeah, man. But I guess last thing is, I got to ask you this before we finish up. Yep. And if no one's asked you this, or someone's asked you this and I haven't paid attention, it's my fault. The purple hat. Where did it come from? I just want to know before I know people have to ask. It's like this is like the most consistent thing I see is that purple hat. And first of all, I love purple. I was like, all right, that's dope. I wish I could pull it off all day. But you have a signature piece. I just want to know where it came from.
Yeah, man. So when I left corporate, I decided I was going to start wearing a uniform. Okay. And the reasoning for that was more like my silent protest. Okay. Because not only when you work in corporate, you kind of feel there's sometimes where you can feel like you gotta, in order to demonstrate to people that you know your stuff beyond knowing your stuff, you gotta wear all the stuff.
Yep, you do.
And so there's like a part of that, but then the other part of that was, again, like I always saw myself on the I wanted to be an executive, right? So I wanted to be a CMO or whatever the case may be at one of these organizations. And I was on that track. But what I realized was these folks were never at home with their families. But secondly, they always wore all black with white shoes. And I was like, I'm not conforming to this shit. So I was like, my uniform is going to be a subtle protest to that. And where it really came through was when I decided to wear all brown. Was like, this is my silent, protest to them wearing all black. And then the hat, I was thinking about like where I come from. I come from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay. I have a lot of community in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And I went to LSU. The color was purple. In New Orleans, one of the big colors is purple. And so I wanted to always let my community know, no matter where I go in my career, no matter who I'm around, no matter what rooms I'm in, I'm always going to be myself. And I wanted to send a nod back home. And so that's why you're going to see this purple hat in some form of another, always.
I love it. No, I hope if you didn't know, now we know, because that makes total sense now. So like you say, that's when people recognize the purple hat, they know it's Bimma. Like you have a logo one day, it's just a face outline with a purple hat.
I love it.
That's awesome, man. No, but I really do appreciate your time, man. I know you're busy. I mean, and actually, you're on a break now until January 1st. So,
Seventh.
Oh, okay.
Say
We're
that.
the whole week
Say
off.
that. I'm
7.
gone.
Don't call Bimma until January 8th, actually. So give him an extra day to get ready.
But when I'm back, when I'm back, I'm back.
Hey, man, I'm waiting for it. No, I appreciate it, man. And, like, podcast aside, man, I appreciate being able to connect with you because you've been awesome. Been great getting to know you, man. The relationship we're building. So I appreciate it, man. I, again, hope for the best for you, your wife, your business, man. You're doing great things. And just, if they don't know already, let the people know where to find you.
Yeah, man. So Bimma, you can find me across, I'm mainly on Instagram currently, like Bimma Williams, and I occasionally share some updates on LinkedIn. I will be having a more intentional strategy around YouTube next year. And then also I'll be launching a paid newsletter in 2025 as well. So it's going to be more of a deep dive. Mm-hmm. And so it'll be a very, very, very much more in depth than what you get on 55 seconds on Instagram. So
go.
it's basically case studies. So it's cool. Really for, it's for the aspiring collab marketer. It's for the creative that wants to do brand collabs, kind of like we talked about earlier. And then it's for the entrepreneur who wants to figure out how to turn this into a sustainable thing the way that I have. And so giving them truly valuable information so that they can do that on their journey.
Awesome, man. Well, shoot, I appreciate you, dude. And I'm gonna send you a bribe to be in your next year's collab.
Okay.
I got $10. I'm sending.
Okay. You heard it here first.
Okay. Hey, don't worry. I can swing $10 shipping in the grocery store, like I said. I can do that. But no, man, I appreciate you. And guys, make sure follow Bimma on Instagram. He's coming back stronger, I should say, because he's definitely putting out some amazing content. And of course, follow us at Sneaker History. On Instagram, YouTube, Apple, you name it. We're there somewhere. So again, appreciate you guys. Until next time, see ya.
Peace.
Hey everyone, this is Nick again. Before you take off, do us a solid and head over to Apple Podcasts to leave us a review. Give us a rating on Spotify and Amazon Music, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel because we have even more video content coming soon. Speaking of new content, we have an amazing community of sneaker enthusiasts that hang out in our Sneaker History Discord on a daily basis. While sneakers is a connection point that brought us all together, we've all discovered countless shared passions that we have in common with each other. We recently launched a couple of new podcasts directly from our community. One of them is a Formula One podcast. If you're an F1 fan like me, the Exhaust Notes podcast is your weekly fix of Formula One fun. It's hosted by myself, Rohit Malhotra, and Todd Yates. New episodes drop every Tuesday. I've been wearing fitted hats for years and collecting my favorite teams since I was a little leaguer. It has been awesome to see so many new fans getting into fitteds in recent years. Crown and Stitch is our new talk show about fitted hats with Dexter, Keith, and myself, where we talk about fitted hats, snapbacks, throw in some obscure hats because we all kind of like some funky stuff once in a while, don't we? Copping, collecting, and so much more. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Hit the links in the show notes for this episode to give our new shows a listen, and be on the lookout for more new podcasts dropping soon. Last but not least, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Thank you all for the support, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.